that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Likwitah people. I'm John Kerr, Chairperson of the School District 72 Board of Education. In attendance tonight, virtually, this evening is Vice Chair Kat Eddy and Trustees Joyce McMahon, Susan Wilson, Daryl Hagan, Shannon Briggs, who will be joining us, and Richard Franklin. Also in attendance are Superintendent Jeremy Morrow, Associate Superintendent Morgan Kyle, and Superintendents Morgan Kyle and Phil Sismic, as well as Secretary Treasurer Kevin Patrick. Present also are Natalie Crawshaw, Assistant to the Secretary Treasurer Jennifer Patrick, Community Engagement Officer, and providing technical support is Barbara Drake, Manager of IT. We also have Deborah Martell and Aaron Pickering with us at the start. With COVID-19 cases continuing to rise, we've gone to a virtual format as in the last meeting for our public meetings on the direction of the District Health Officer's Office through the Environmental Safety Officer. This step was taken in order to maintain compliance with the Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry's order, which restricts the board's ability to meet in person. The order will be in effect until February 5th. If at that time the order is rescinded, the board will receive that decision, will revisit that decision. If the order is extended, the board will continue to meet virtually until such time as it is given direction that in-person meetings are permitted. Our board continues to take precautions and to make accommodations where possible to protect the health and safety of all members of our learning community. In my previous remarks, I have noted that the COVID-19 virus has continued to affect our educational enterprise. One aspect of the virus has been the effect that the measures to combat it are having on the mental health of our students. Without going into great detail, we have heard that the figure is up to 1 in 5 of our students experiencing some degree of mental health difficulties. This is a serious problem, and while our district and community is making efforts to deal with this problem, the growing incidence of mental health issues is one that I believe that the provincial government must recognize and allocate additional resources to address. The board is continuing to advocate for education on a provincial level with resolutions to the British Columbia School Trustees Provincial Association Provincial Council on vaccination priority for education staff, and to the BCPC annual general meeting on the same issue. The board will also discuss proposing a motion to the BCSTA annual general meeting for a change in the formulation and dissemination of FSA results. Over the past the past few months, the board has engaged its employees in an employee engagement survey. The purpose of this survey is to gather feedback on perceptions on the workplace experience in School District 72. In the preamble to the preliminary results, BC Stats states, quote, ensuring that employees are engaged in their work is critical for performance. Research shows that engaged employees are more productive, less likely to resign, and provide better service, unquote. In support of the School District 72 strategic plan, quote, School District 72 is investigating employee perception of their workplace experiences to help inform strategies for making the workplace the best possible. School District 72's business is student learning, and high performance translates into improved student achievement. Last Friday, I attended a partner liaison meeting in which 6 topics were discussed in breakout meetings, including COVID's impact on learning, mental health and well-being, and innovations and lessons learned for the pandemic. There were 3 other topics as well. Dr. Rika Gustafson reviewed the Provincial Health Officer's orders and the schedule for vaccinations. The Minister of Education made the statement that there is an expectation that the return to school in September 2021 would be under stage 1 conditions. Additionally, she indicated that childcare would be under the mandate of the Ministry of Education by 2023. She provided no detail concerning funding, how service was planned to be provided, and where this would occur, but this is still early days. The keynote address was by Dr. John Hattie, entitled Visible Learning. Rather than try to summarize his address, I will direct you to his website, www.visiblelearningmetax.com, where you can find further details. Finally, as I previously noted, our schools reflect our communities. The low incidence of COVID-19 infections here indicate that most people are behaving responsibly with regard to this virus, and this is reflected by the low incidence of exposure in our schools. With the beginning of vaccinations in our province, schools should become even safer places for our students and staff. Now, more than ever, with the end in sight, it is important to keep our guard up and to continue to be responsible in our efforts to subdue this pandemic. Okay, so we shall then move to our superintendent's remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair Kerr. It is a pleasure tonight to report that our schools are eagerly going about the business of learning. And when I go and visit, it's so evident that we have well-established learning routines that are happening. We have students working very hard, and high schools will be moving next week to their 5th block rotation. This will mark the halfway point through the 2020-21 school year, and I am so grateful for the way in which our staff and students have risen to the challenges that this unique year has presented. Learning is still happening even in the midst of COVID. I want to celebrate that this is Family Literacy Week. It's running all week, and particularly tomorrow, which is the National Family Literacy Day. The theme this year is Travel the World, and there's been a number of events. There's a number of events happening this week. They're happening around town, and there are some opportunities, I believe particularly tomorrow, for our classes to virtually connect with some of the opportunities. So thank you to all of those that have helped get those opportunities for our youth. I want to just remind the community that kindergarten registration will begin Monday, February the 1st. This year we will be having both online and school registration options, and we just ask those families that would like to register in person to ensure that they've called the school first and made an appointment. Late French immersion students, these are students going from grades 5 to grade 6. We'll be having an online event on February the 3rd. This will be for parents and students who are interested in this program. Tonight, we heard mention we have Aaron Pickering, teachers Jillian Kirk, and District Principal Deborah Mortel, who will be talking to us tonight about an awesome Pro D Day that's planned for all district staff on February the 12th. The day is titled Empowering to Transform, and it's focused on 2 key priorities in our strategic plan: equity across all measures for Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, and honoring Indigenous worldviews and perspectives. And I'm so grateful that we've had these 3 dedicated educators planning this day for all members of our school community, and I'm looking forward to their presentation tonight. I'm also grateful and echo Chairperson Kerr's remarks that there have been no exposure events since our last board meeting, which is a reflection of what's happening in our community, and we continue to ask that the community take precautions as this continues to help us keep our schools as safe as possible. And lastly, I'll conclude my comments by just mentioning in the board meeting tonight that we have a team lead meeting with our Equity in Action team. This is a team that's meeting, that's looking at how we can take some specific actions to remove barriers and to work towards equity and outcomes for all students, particularly our Indigenous youth. This is important and critical work, and we're grateful to have a team of people dedicated to work towards those actions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Morrow. And Ms. Kirk, I apologize for missing you in the introduction, but we also have Jillian Kirk here for the presentation. Okay, we'll move to item number 3, which is approval of the minutes of January 12th, 2021. Moved by Trustee Hagan, seconded by, Trustee Eddy. Is there any discussion? Okay, the motion, I'm sorry, I should say what the motion was. The motion was that the minutes of the meeting of January 12th, 2021 are hereby approved as circulated. So it was moved by Trustee Hagan, seconded by Trustee Eddy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, opposed say nay. Okay. Item 4, is there any business arising from the minutes? Hearing none. Are there any additions or alterations to the agenda? All right. So So we'll move to item 6 then, which is approval of the agenda, and the suggested motion is that the agenda is hereby approved as circulated. Could we have a mover for that motion? Okay, Trustee Eddy, seconded Trustee Hagan. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone else?
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Okay, we're getting there. These virtual meetings sometimes have little glitches to them. All right, so we will move to item 7 then, the report of board decisions from the January 26th confidential board meeting, and that will be Trustee Eddy.
The confidential meeting dealt with matters regarding staffing, and we are not finished our agenda. We will be returning after this evening's meeting to finish off the last couple of items.
Okay, thank you. Item 8 was a reply to our letter of our letter to PSEC on December 16th, 2020. People have had a chance to have a look at that letter. Is there any comments or questions on it? Okay, then I guess we will accept that correspondence. I don't know if I need a motion for that or not, but we do have the correspondence there. There are no public submissions or agenda submissions, so we'll move on to education submissions, and that will be the update to the board on the District Pro D February 12th, and we will have Ms. Kirk, Ms. Martell, and Ms. Pickering. So, ladies, you have the floor. Deborah, you're muted.
Can we see this?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Nuga, I'm Jillian. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the territory of the Wewakam, Wewakai, Klahoose, Comox, and Quechua First Nations. We honor our relationships with these nations, the Hamalko First Nation, Métis, and all other First Nation and Inuit peoples who reside on this territory. I'm grateful for the opportunity to live and work on this territory also. So we've made a presentation to talk about the Pro D Day that's coming up, February 12th, 2021. It's called Empowering to Transform. So here are the three of us that are going to be presenting today, and I'm going to hand it over to Deb to speak to the day.
Well, I'm going to speak to just sort of the first part, and then we're going to pass it back and forth. First, I want to thank Chairperson Kerr and the rest of the trustees allowing us to speak on this exciting day that we pulled together. I also want to share that it has been an absolute great pleasure to work with Jillian and Aaron and all the other presenters that we have for the 12th, and I think it's going to be a truly exciting day for us. I also wanted to give you a little bit of background information about how we sort of got to where we are at this particular moment. So building on the good work of the past 20 years of the district and Indigenous communities and the ministry's enhancement agreements, we wanted to make sure that we increase staff knowledge and understanding of Indigenous cultures and history and the contributions and of course the current realities. School district is and continues to be committed to do this work. The district has developed a really robust strategic plan with the various priorities, focusing on with Indigenous students, families, and communities at its forefront. Together, our district will work together with equity of learning and achievement opportunities, creating learning environments that reflect and is relevant for all of our learners, and that we operate in a culture of wellness and respect. We also understand that as a district grows in our work, and the more we do, the more we learn, and the deeper we have to go, and we have things we still need to do to ensure that our Indigenous students reach their full potential, and that our district creates the environment for this to happen. School District 72, as Dr. Morrow has mentioned earlier, has just begun its multi-year initiative in the Equity in Action project, And our Prodi session will support the district and all staff, that's educators, everybody that's a part of School District 72's ability to understand the work that we're going into, building off of the work and the things that they've learned, and the importance of such work. I also want to make note, as you see here, that there is the Ministry of Education has mandated a district-specific day for Indigenous work. And within our district, we've picked February 12th this year to focus on. So if you can bounce to the next slide for me. And again, with a focus on our district priorities and commitments, just going a little deeper in creating a learning space for all of our district staff. Each one of us has something to learn, something to bring forward, and more to learn. And we also want to make sure that we provide opportunity to learn and unlearn and self-reflect. Sometimes what we have previously learned or come to understand is not always accurate or the full story, or hearing all of the parties in place. Each of us comes with our own set of learning, history, personal story, and together on this particular day, on February 12th, we're going to come together and we can explore why we think the way we do and what we maybe need to consider differently, and maybe what's missing from our narrative and how we shift our perspectives and do things differently to change things and have a better outcome come for all. And that goes for students and for staff and everyone that works within School District 72 to enrich the experience so that each and every one of us has a joyful day and really feels proud of the work that we do and what we're offering our students. So I'll end with that, and I'll just send that back over to Jillian, and she's going to go a little bit deeper on how we got to our specific sessions.
Okay, so throughout our work with Indigenous Ed, these questions you see on the screen are common questions. Our resolve is to find ways to enhance the staff ability to find their answers. So one of the questions is, how does this learning involve me? So it's critical that we find a way that each staff member sees within their daily work a connection to the strategic priorities. How does each person take responsibility? Again, by creating informative sessions, our hope is that an interest is ignited for potential learning, unlearning, or relearning, and going deeper into the specific area of need. And why does understanding my biases matter? Unfortunately, many are unaware that their understanding of Indigenous histories, cultures, and realities has been created by a constructed narrative. We have to begin to look at where we have learned information and whose voice that information came from. How do I learn about the silence narrative? The key piece here is to listen and learn. Listen to hear, not to respond. Whose voice is being heard? Question why you may not have heard a certain narrative before. And what is my role? To be engaged, be a learner, to listen, be reflective, and demand change for oneself. If we demand change around us, then often that places responsibility elsewhere. And how do I know what I don't know? Once someone really opens themselves up to learning, they will begin to question things that don't seem to make sense based on the normalized narrative. Something is missing or something evokes passion for a greater understanding. So our goal is that intentional reflection will help us move beyond fear. So now Erin is going to tell you a little bit about the registration site.
Good evening. I'm so happy and excited to be presenting about this fantastic day. We've hired a company called EasyReg.ca, which is a professional conference building company with a great deal of experience hosting educational and other large-scale conferences. We chose to do this because we wanted to ensure that this day, although we could not be together in person, was an opportunity for all staff members to come together with an ease of access for everyone. We may not be able to gather together physically, but this online event allows us to come to be together, learn together, and we will hope it encourages further collaboration and conversation. Staff log into this website with their email address and register for a selection of for a session of their choosing after a series of morning events that will bring all district employees together. We are also providing access to school sites for employees who may not have access to technology at their current work site or in their homes, so that everyone can participate in this event. So far, with the registration being open for just over a week, we have over 300 people registered for this day, which is a big win for us, and we're excited to continue to enlist our staff members from around the district. I'll pass it back to Jillian to tell you a little bit about our keynote sessions before I explain the afternoon sessions in more detail.
So the keynote sessions, the day will begin with a welcome by Will Henderson of the Waybuckham First Nation, and then there will be an opening by Dr. Jeremy Morrow, and he will open and frame the day for our district. Joseph Heslop is the provincial lead of the Equity in Action Project at the BC Ministry of Education. He will lead the panel discussion through the lens of equity. He is also, so he is the lead of the Equity in Action Project at the BC Ministry of Education. This is a multi-year initiative that School District 72 is just beginning. Joseph will outline what it is, what needs to be done, and the benefits of such work. This will be followed by a panel of School District 72 students who will share their personal experiences in the district. And the second keynote is Dr. Susan Dion. Her presentation, Land, History, and Indigenous Presence, Learning Through Art and Story, focuses on her own questions and journey to understand the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Canada. And now Erin will tell you a little bit about the afternoon sessions.
We have 13 different sessions available for folks to choose from, and I'm happy to say that there are 5 sessions being offered and presented by educators from within our district. These have filled up quickly, and most of those sessions, in bold, are already full. These sessions include drumming, dancing, and singing, which will be an outdoor experience with Shayna Smith. Everyday Kwakwala and Likwala, a language learning experience for teachers. Exploring Time Immemorial, an experiential beaded timeline workshop, strategies for Indigenous themed books, and We Will Go Outside and Learn in Ayajutham. All of these have an experience, all 5 of these have an experiential element to them, which is fantastic. Numbers have been limited in some cases for both safety and to ensure a deeper opportunity to learn. Alongside these 5 that are being presented by our district educators, there are also island experts, including Kathy Camilleri, Shelley Niemi from Greater Victoria, Bev Sellers, and Jackie Lever. We've rounded out the remaining 13 sessions with provincial experts. All of these sessions are intended to allow individuals to go deeper in their own understanding and to encourage thoughtful reflection and questioning about their role and their understanding. We are excited for this day and know that the learning done on this day will help us to foster inclusive and respectful learning and working environments for all. We're so appreciative to share this information with you as we get ready for an amazing day of learning that is just the beginning of so many great things to come. Thank you so much for allowing us to share this. Gaila Kessler.
Are there any questions for any of the presenters from people present?
I'd like to ask, given the limited spaces for people within the district, is there any chance that trustees can participate?
That's a great question. Okay, Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in. We will, because some of the sessions were limited, we wanted to make sure that the staff just got exactly what they wanted first. But our hope is to open it up for yourselves as well as the Indigenous Education Advisory Council members, and perhaps extend it out a little bit further. I know I have some partners in down the island as well that would like to take part. So if we have openings later in the week, and again for yourselves, I think it would be a great opportunity.
Thank you.
Other questions? I can't see some of you, so if you have a question, just speak up.
Excuse me, Trustee
Okay,
Kerr,
go
I
ahead.
have a comment. Thank you, ladies, for this work. Trustee McMahon and I had the opportunity to sit with Joseph through the first Equity in Action Committee meeting. It was a powerful meeting. It was an exhausting meeting. It was an emotional meeting. And I hope that our district employees get to experience a similar movement. It was inspiring to know that we as a collective can change the results for our Indigenous students just by learning more. And that was greatly appreciated. So thank you for pulling this together. I think it will be a very powerful day for our employees.
Does anyone else have anything to add? Well, on behalf of the board, I would like to thank you for your presentation. I'm sure that it's going to be a real eye-opening experience for a lot of people. So thank you for all the effort you put into pulling this together. And I'm sure it can have nothing but positive results in the future. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we will move on then to we don't have any public or agenda submissions. I'm sorry, we're going to move to item 11B, our district music programs, and that's Mr. Sismic.
Hello, I'm pleased to report that despite COVID-19, our elementary music teachers continue to offer amazing music opportunities for our students. This year has resulted in music being taught differently in a variety of schools and in a variety of ways. Some teachers are teaching in dedicated music rooms, others are taking their instruments and such into the classrooms. Some are teaching all the students year long, others are teaching small groups or cohorts for a period of time and moving to another cohort so they see fewer students at any one time. But all have reported that enhanced safety and cleaning protocols are in place, whether it's sanitizing the learning area or instruments, increased hand washing, adult mask wearing, or physical distancing. All the protocols are in place all the time. Usually in elementary, there's a performance component, usually choir. This year, our elementary music teachers have gotten quite creative. Some are continuing with choir, others are focusing on instruments, while others are also introducing students to other types of performing arts like drama. In all cases, staff and student safety is a priority. And as a district, we are committed to continuing to work with our music educators to ensure they feel supported.
Are there any questions or comments on Mr. Sismic's report? Okay, Trustee Hagan. You're muted, I believe. Yeah, you're muted.
Thanks. I had to ask for a report on the music programs because music is something that runs right through everyone's lives for their whole lives long. And I was simply just wondering whether or not they had enough physical equipment, technology to deliver the kinds of programs that they would like to. And so thanks, Phil, for looking into it and noting all the safety protocols that are in place as well.
Are there any comments? Other comments? Well, thank you very much for your report, Mr. Sismic. One thing I did neglect, and I'll mention it now, I did neglect to mention it in my introductory comments, is that the question and answer function is open for questions on agenda items in this meeting, for this virtual meeting, and questions that are posed during the meeting will be addressed at the end of this session. Okay, thank you. We will move on then to item number 12, electorate and board matters. And that is the motion on board policy revisions, and there was notice of motion given at the last meeting. So the proposed motion will be that the board adopt the board governance committee's recommended amendments to board governance policy 6, role of the chair and vice chair, board governance policy 25, Indigenous education, and the addition of new board and the addition of new board governance policy 28, student leadership. Could we have a mover for that motion? Okay, Trustee Franklin, seconded by Trustee Eddy. Any discussion on this item? Okay, Trustee McMahon.
Yes, I wondered what the conversation might be around the suggestion that the Indigenous Education Committee meet once a year. I wondered if that was going to be adequate for us to really understand what the issues facing the Indigenous Education Committee might be, and whether there was going to be a time frame set up for that, or it was just going to kind of occur as needed. And I had similar questions around the student leadership. Are the details of that to be worked out at a future date, like what the terms of reference are, what the guiding principles and purposes of this might be, and who might be in a role of coordinating and facilitating it in order that it be effective in its role? Like, do those details come much later?
Trustee Franklin.
Thanks. So the first question had to do with the once per year piece on Indigenous education. The wording is at least once per year. So it could be more, but once would be one more than we have now.
Mm-hmm.
We have no meeting with them at all. So at least once. It doesn't preclude more meetings, but there should be at least one meeting a year. So that's why we came up with that. There could be more. With regard to student leadership, the role of the board is to set the direction for the superintendent. Policy is a guideline to action. So what this does is it sets a task for the superintendent to carry forward with. So it would be up to him to it's not up to us to get into the details. That's up to the superintendent.
Does that answer your question or your questions? You're muted, Trustee McMahon.
Brother. It decides to mute itself. It doesn't like me. It doesn't really clearly outline though what the rationale is. Should we not articulate why we feel it's important to have a policy around student leadership?
Trustee Franklin.
Yeah, the rationale is very simply stated. The board recognizes and values the voice of students.
Okay.
Okay.
I know it's parsimonious use of language, but it's my style.
Less is more. Trustee Hagan.
Yes, I'm glad we're getting the student leadership policy in here. As you know, I think that I just had to look to see if I was muted. I'm just glad to see that we're moving in a direction. I did see one little issue on 28.3 that we are going to be assigning a trustee to this leadership committee. And I think that they should be the ones that would help to establish what's going to be on the agenda rather than going back to the board chair.
Trustee Franklin, would you like to address that?
I would consider that a friendly amendment.
It's a great policy. I like it.
Okay. So the change would read what? What would you propose the change read, Trustee Hagan?
Yes, meet twice a, where is that? It's on the second line here. There's a board representative with the board representative, the trustee representative.
Okay, and that's considered to be a friendly amendment. Trustee Franklin?
You're muted, Richard.
You're muted.
Yeah, it's the last word of number 3. Board chair would be trustee representative. That's the change.
All right. There's a friendly amendment, so I don't think we need to have any discussion further on that. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All
Aye.
those opposed, say nay. The motion is passed. Okay, we will move on then to item number 12E, and that's on BCPC advocacy. Trustee Hagan.
Yes, we use the terms BCPC quite often, and I'm not sure everyone always understands what it is. It's our employer association. It represents us, our district. We are the employer in our district. And I've found that sometimes we're looking to them and things get really complicated in that they get most of their directions from the government rather than from trustees putting their initiatives forward. The organization, I think, needs to be rechanged and revamped. The reason why I'm bringing this up today is simply that with vaccinations, it would be great to see, as we who are responsible for our employees be seen and act upon trying to get our employees vaccinated as soon as possible. And whatever that takes as far as pressure and negotiations, I think we just need to put teachers and our employees first to say they are frontline workers. They often are essential workers. We can't afford for schools to shut down because our employees aren't protected. And I would like to see in the rollout that that our employees are looked after carefully. There's a second issue that I would like to bring up as well. And I'm bringing all these things up because our AGM is coming up this Thursday. So I'll be bringing these points up at that meeting. There's no motion required because it will never get organized in time and there's actually no place for it. So I'll just bring it up at the meeting. But what I've noticed is that, and everyone's talked about it so far this evening, and that is mental health and well-being, and as well as the fatigue that's going on. We are now in the second year of the pandemic this week. That's a year. That's a long time. It's starting to grind on people of having to do the same things over and over. Sometimes we are a little careless, but now is the time to really focus. And as an employer, we need to really razor sharp pay attention to what's going on, especially now that we have all these variants that are going on. I want to make sure that people are protected, they're safe, and that we get funding for mental health and for fatigue. If our employees need a break, I think that we should be the ones seen to be approaching the government, and it should be funded to say we need more money for mental health and fatigue. And as well, I would like to see that our employers association stays on top of all the protocols with the variants that are coming into the district. We send our teachers in, no vaccinations. Right now, some of the vaccinations are on hold. And before some of them get our teachers go in every day. Schools are open. People can go to work because our teachers are up front dealing with 30 students at a time. So I would like to see BCPC take an active role in all three of these areas. So the rollout of the vaccines, the mental health and fatigue, and stay on top of the protocols, and take a real forward look at the way the employers association behaves themselves. I sat on the board for 5 years. We didn't come up with a single contract. I was there at the founding meeting of BCPC. The intent is that we bargain in good faith. We come up with good contracts. We take care of our employees, and we are the employers. We give direction. And if need be, if the government says, you don't need to wear masks, then I say we need to look carefully. What do we need to do to protect our teachers, our employees, all of them? So anyways, as I go to this meeting that's coming up virtually on Thursday, I'll be bringing up some of these issues. As you know, we have an interim person in charge right now. I would like to understand how they're going to go about the hiring process. I would like to understand what kind of considerations are going on. I'd like to see, as our board goes through a self-evaluation, that they go through an evaluation as to what they're doing and how are they getting to where they want to be. If in 5 years we don't come up with a contract, we never had a single evaluation in that time frame. We just kept motoring along, listening more to the government than to what we, the employers, as local districts, would like to have happen in our districts. So those are some of the things I'd like to bring up at this meeting on Thursday. And if you folks have any ideas, I would appreciate to hear them.
Are there any comments or questions of Trustee Hagan? Okay, hearing none. Trustee Hagan.
I would just like to say something.
Go ahead, Trustee Franklin.
Yeah, I was the BCPC rep for the first 4 years of my trusteeship, and I agree 100% with Trustee Hagan. Sometimes I feel that trustees are not driving the train. In fact, during those years, trustees were excluded from the board, and it was only until very recently that the BCPC, which is the Employers Association, allowed trustees to be on the board. They're basically dictated to by government appointees. And attended the AGM 4 times. I think there was much back and forth. It was mostly coming down from on top. And I just want to give Trustee Hagan all my support to speak out in favor of trustees and our employees, making sure that they're well protected and that the BCPC is a function of the school trustees, not of the provincial government.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Trustee Hagan, I'm sure that you will represent those topics quite ably, and I look forward to hearing your report on your experience at that meeting during our next meeting on our next regularly scheduled board meeting on February 23rd. I think it's the 23rd. Yes. So we'll look forward to hearing that. I'm sure that you will have some interesting experiences to tell us about. Okay, so we'll move on then. There are no educational issues brought up tonight, so we will move on to item 14, which is finance warrant number 11, and the suggested motion is that finance warrant number 11, dated November 30, 2020, be accepted as presented. So we have a mover for that motion. Okay, Trustee Eddy, Trustee McMahon. Okay. Are there any questions on the warrant for Secretary Treasurer Patrick? Trustee Hagan?
Well, while this subject is open, I guess we're still working on our finances at this point. Kevin?
Yes, we're always working on the finances.
No,
so.
I mean, as the budget and and how are we doing?
So we are working on the final budget for the 2021 year. That will be brought to the board at the end of February. So as part of that, we are having a mid-year review of that. We also have a quarterly report that will be coming. I'm not sure if it's just before or just after, as this is our Assistant Secretary Treasurer's first year through. I want to make sure that the top priority is the final budget, and then the secondary will be getting the quarterly report to the board. But we'll have that information out shortly, and of course, as soon as we're done that, then we begin planning for the next budget year as well. So I hope to have updates to the board fairly soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee Eddie? You're muted.
Just being cognizant of the fact that we have new trustee members sitting on the Audit and Risk Committee. Do you plan any professional development for them as they move forward into the financial process?
Yes, that's always a great idea, especially now that we can do it virtually as well. We may be able to get a group together, potentially from other districts as well. We have our audit, and we have our instructor, if you will, who is still available and is still working within the sector, so we can reach out to that person and see if they're available again.
Awesome. I think that I'd love to sit through that session again, and I think that it was very beneficial when sitting on that committee.
Other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Show of hands too. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion is carried. So we move on then to item 17, and there will be a bit of a delay to see if there are any questions that come in over items that are on the agenda. So we will wait to hear from to Ms. Patrick, our Community Engagement Officer, to see if there are any questions that come to the board.
Chairperson Kerr, there's currently no questions that have come in yet, but we will give it a minute or two, if that's all right.
That's perfectly fine. Let's give it 2 or 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
I suppose that we don't have any questions at this point.
Still no questions, so I think you're safe to adjourn.
Well, I suppose silence implies consent. So we will then move on to item 18, and I'll call on Trustee Hagan.
Move adjourn.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, we stand adjourned,
Aye.
and we will then return to the confidential to finish that meeting.